That was wild. Suge Knight warned everyone how dangerous prison could be. And now, it's like he predicted his own fate. The death row founder just got stabbed in a brutal prison attack, and insiders claim it's tied to the secrets he's been exposing. What was Suge trying to reveal, and who wanted to silence him? The attack that shook hip-hop started one quiet night in June. Suge Knight, once one of the most feared names in music, became just another inmate caught in the chaos. Sources say the lights in C Block were off when an inmate somehow got into Suge's cell and launched a violent attack out of nowhere. But to really understand this moment, you gotta know who Suge Knight truly was. He wasn't just another exec. He was hip-hop's ultimate enforcer, the man everyone feared to cross. Born and raised in Compton, Suge went from football fields to the gritty streets, building his reputation as muscle for hire before flipping the whole music world upside down. In the early 90s, he teamed up with Dr. Dre, who had just left Ruthless Records, and together they formed Death Row Records, the empire that would define West Coast rap forever. By 1994, Death Row was unstoppable, pulling in millions, dominating charts, and signing legends like Tupac, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, Nate Dogg, and Thaw Dogg Pound. But power came with chaos. Suge ran that label like a war zone, using fear, loyalty, and pure muscle to stay on top. Rumors swirled for years about intimidation, beatdowns, and wild stories, like Suge allegedly hanging Vanilla Ice over a balcony. He rolled deep wherever he went, shutting clubs down with a whole squad. But fame doesn't last forever. By the 2000s, Death Row was broke, and Suge's empire was crumbling under court cases, parole violations, and the infamous 2015 hit and run that left one man dead. That earned him 28 years in prison, a sentence many thought would finally silence him. But Suge Knight? He wasn't done talking. From behind bars, he found a new stage, a prison phone. In January 2024, from R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility, Suge made a collect call that rocked the entire industry. The call went to the PBD podcast, and what followed was nearly 2 hours of pure chaos. Most inmates stay quiet to survive, but Suge did the opposite. He named names, dropped accusations, and pulled no punches. He talked about Death Row, his past, and then he went nuclear.
I'm quite sure somebody taught him that, and that's more deep in the industry. These guys who got involved with a lot of people who was their mentors, instead of having a guy to mentor your own father, they was having these guys they mentor. And when that happens in the industry, it was done to them, they do to the next person. So
when the topic turned to Diddy, Suge claimed Diddy didn't learn the game alone, that he was taught by powerful figures in the industry. And then came the real shocker. Suge dropped Clive Davis's name. If you know music, you know that's dangerous territory. Suge suggested Clive wasn't just an executive. He was a puppet master. He claimed Davis had the power to make or break anyone, to decide who shines and who disappears. And Suge didn't stop there. He warned that even Diddy himself might be in danger, not for what he's done, but for what he knows. That call, that one explosive moment, might have been the very reason Suge Knight ended up stabbed in his cell. The question is, what secret was too big to stay hidden? This wasn't just some washed-up gangster talking crazy. This was a man who knew too much because he helped keep those secrets. Suge Knight had been spilling names, stories, and power plays for weeks. But what he didn't realize was that talking might cost him everything. It went down just after 10:40 p.m. inside C Block, Unit 5 of R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility, a medium security prison outside San Diego. The yard was locked, lights dimmed, and the usual late-night routines were in motion. Guards doing rounds, inmates hiding contraband, cells clanging shut one by one. But something wasn't right. According to a leaked statement from a corrections officer who spoke to Hip Hop Unfiltered, one cell door stayed open longer than it should have. Inmate number D3095, Marion Suge Knight. That door was supposed to shut within 30 seconds. It stayed open for over 2 minutes, and in prison, that doesn't happen by mistake. In that small window, a masked inmate slipped inside. Witnesses later told Vlad TV, "We heard a thud, then another, then silence. No yelling, just that deep gasping sound when your ribs give out." Minutes later, the prison phone system on C Block suddenly went down for maintenance. And just like that, communication was cut. Cameras that were supposedly recording static for exactly 8 minutes, from 10:38 to 10:46 p.m. By the time guards arrived, it was too late. Suge Knight was found beaten, ribs shattered, face slashed, and blood pooling on the floor. Within an hour, he was rushed to the medical unit while 3 known death row affiliates were thrown into solitary. By morning, the security logs were wiped clean, and phone records tied to Suge were mysteriously deleted. A prison insider told Hip Hop DX, someone pulled rank. They had one team to hit and one team to clean up. That's why it never made the news. But the streets found out fast. By sunrise, whispers spread through California prisons, from Pelican Bay to Lancaster. The big homie got touched. Everyone knew something major had gone down. See, Suge made more enemies than allies in his rise to power, and some of those grudges never died. From Diddy and Clive Davis to Jimmy Iovine, and even former death row enforcers who turned informants, everyone had a reason to fear what Suge still knew. After that explosive PBD podcast call, people started to panic. Suge wasn't just venting old beefs. He was threatening to expose how deep the game really goes. Industry names, government connections, and illegal money flows. Stuff that could wreck careers and open old murder cases from the Pac and Biggie days. A West Coast insider said, Suge ain't been relevant in music for years, but info-wise, he's still dangerous. He's got paperwork, deals, and secrets nobody wants out. And after that call, they couldn't risk letting him talk again. Inside Donovan, gang politics flipped overnight. Bloods who once repped death row went silent. A top Crip leader got transferred mysteriously, and Suge's name became forbidden. One inmate told Vlad TV, when the bosses move in silence, you don't speak on it. And this was one of those moves. It'd be easy to write it off as prison drama or old street revenge. But once you trace the timeline from that phone call to the malfunction and then to the total media blackout, the truth is hard to ignore. This wasn't random. Suge Knight rattled too many cages, and somebody made sure he'd never speak again. That podcast wasn't just a one-time rant. Suge Knight had been running his mouth for months. From his prison cell, he's been exposing names, spilling secrets, and shaking the entire hip-hop game to its core. Through his show Collect Call with Suge Knight, launched in late 2023, Suge turned his cell into a confession booth for the industry's dirtiest truths. Week after week, the death row founder dropped bombs, claiming to reveal the real stories behind hip-hop's biggest legends. He painted a picture of betrayal, lies, and backstabbing that went all the way up the food chain. And nobody was safe. Not Dre, not Snoop, not even the executives who once called him family. The wildest part? Most of his fury was aimed straight at his former death row crew, especially Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. These were the same dudes Suge helped lift from street hustlers to rap icons. But according to Suge, their success came at a heavy price: loyalty, honesty, and the truth. He claimed their betrayal destroyed everything he built from the ground up. But the tension between Suge and Snoop, that's a whole different level. This ain't just business, this is personal. In his own words, Suge accused Snoop of rewriting their shared history and even working with law enforcement. He said Snoop got connections that protect him from consequences that would have crushed anyone else from their circle. That line, "You connected to those folks," hit hard. Because in street code, that means one thing: you're protected because you flipped. You could hear the pain in Suge's voice when he talked about Snoop. It wasn't just anger, it was betrayal. He said Snoop and others erased his name from death row's legacy, twisting the story to make themselves look like the real masterminds. For Suge, that wasn't just disrespect, that was straight up treason. And when it came to Dr. Dre, Suge didn't hold back there either. Their partnership gave the world some of hip-hop's most iconic hits, but behind the music, Suge claimed there was something darker. He said Dre struggled deeply with identity and personal demons, turning to Suge for guidance at one point, only to later turn on him. Whether that's truth or calculated revenge, it's clear their friendship died long before death row did. Suge's most shocking claims came when he started talking about Eazy-E. According to Suge, Dre was playing both sides, pretending to be Eazy's friend while secretly plotting to destroy him. Suge said the emotional toll on Eazy was heavy, but then he dropped the real bombshell. He alleged that Dre was planning violence against Eazy-E, even claiming to have photos and proof. If any of that's true, it completely rewrites how we understand NWA's history and the events leading up to Eazy's death. Suge implied that what went down wasn't just business beef, it was something way darker. From Dre to Snoop, Suge painted the current hip-hop scene as a kingdom built on betrayal. He said what we see now, flashy artists, mega labels, global fame, all comes from a corrupted system that traded authenticity for power. And he didn't stop there. Suge kept calling out other names, Whack 100, Reggie Wright Jr., and more, accusing them of twisting Death Row's history and selling out for fame. His beef spilled onto social media, turning every post into a battlefield of old alliances and new enemies. If even half of what Suge said is real, it means some of hip-hop's biggest success stories are built on lies, snitching, and broken promises. But whether you believe him or not, one thing's for sure, Suge Knight's voice still makes the industry nervous. Because after all these years, there's still one story he hasn't told, one truth that everyone's scared to touch, and it's not about contracts or royalties, it's about what really happened that night in Vegas. When Tupac was gunned down in Suge Knight's car, it changed hip-hop forever. But what most people don't realize is that this might be the secret that could still get Suge touched today. Out of all the scandals, street beefs, and wild accusations tied to Suge over the years, nothing carries more danger or mystery than the truth about what really happened the night Tupac Shakur was killed. The official version is hip-hop legend at this point. September 7th, 1996.
One was Clyde Davis. And you gotta understand one thing. If Death Row, when I started Death Row, you gotta remember one thing. I didn't have no co-founder, nobody else. So I started that company on my own and grabbed Dr. Dre.
Tupac and Suge left the Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand in Vegas. Minutes later, a white Cadillac pulled up beside them and opened fire. Tupac took 4 bullets and died 6 days later, while Suge, who was driving, somehow escaped with just a graze to the head. Ever since, people have been asking one question: how did he survive? Suge's stories about that night have changed over the years, and that's what keeps the rumors alive. Sometimes he acts defensive, other times he laughs it off. But listen close. Whenever Tupac's name comes up, his tone shifts. He gets tense, almost paranoid, like he knows this topic could end badly for him. When critics challenge his version of events, Suge fires back with lines like, "How you know these details if you wasn't there?" It's a mix of anger and guilt, like he's frustrated with the conspiracy talk, but also hiding something he doesn't want to say. Suge's relationship with Tupac was deep, but complicated. On one hand, he saved Pac from prison by posting his $1.4 million bail, signing him to death row, and giving him the platform that turned him into a legend. But on the other hand, that partnership was built on control, loyalty, and pressure, a mix that might have led both men down a dangerous road. Earlier that night, just hours before the shooting, Suge and Pac were caught on camera beating up Orlando Anderson, a known Crip, inside the MGM Grand lobby. That moment, captured in full view of security, is believed to be what sparked the deadly chain of events later that night. But here's where it gets crazy. Multiple investigators now believe it wasn't a simple gang hit. Former LAPD detective Greg Kading's investigation dug deeper, suggesting the shooting was orchestrated by people inside Suge's own circle. He pointed to money problems, death row power struggles, and even insurance policies that could have made Pac's death financially beneficial. If Suge was running out of money and losing control of Tupac, that shooting suddenly looks a lot less random. Think about it. Death Row was falling apart, Pac was planning to leave and start his own label, and Suge was drowning in legal troubles. Pac's death meant Suge kept control of the brand, the masters, and the money, at least for a while. That theory hit hard when Suge's 2025 attempt to overturn his prison sentence got denied, showing that even today, money and survival have always driven his choices. Then there's Keith D, a name that's haunted this case for years. A self-admitted witness and participant, he gave detailed accounts of that night that put Suge in a bad light. He described Suge as paranoid, sloppy, and even scared, completely opposite of the fearless boss image Suge always projected. His testimony made Suge sound more like a desperate man trying to hold his empire together than a mastermind in control. And what makes Keith D's words dangerous is how specific they are, from who was in which car to who fired which shots. Every new piece of info he shares adds more heat on Suge. The fact that Suge was the only one in that BMW who lived just makes the whole thing look darker. Over the years, every new document, interview, or leak has chipped away at Suge's story. Some call him a victim of bad luck. Others say he orchestrated everything. But one thing is undeniable. Every time this topic resurfaces, Suge gets more defensive, like a man running out of explanations. And yet, through it all, he insists he's innocent. He calls his accusers liars, the detectives corrupt, and the witnesses bought. But even behind bars, the whispers don't stop. Because when it comes to Tupac's death, the one man who might know the whole truth is Suge Knight himself. Suge Knight's claim that Snoop Dogg knows more about Tupac's death than he's ever admitted adds a whole new layer of mystery to the case. He's hinted that Snoop left certain people behind that night, a pattern of betrayal that might connect to how Pac was treated in his final moments. The idea that one of hip-hop's biggest stars could be holding back the truth, that's the kind of thing that shakes the culture to its core. But that's not all. The Biggie Smalls connection makes this story even darker. Some believe Suge had a hand in Biggie's murder as revenge for Pac's death. He was never charged, but if there's even a hint of truth there, it would make Suge responsible for two of the biggest losses in music history. Tupac and Biggie. Imagine that. Two icons gone, all tied to one man's empire of chaos. When Suge's been asked about Biggie's murder, his reaction always says more than his words. Sometimes he looks cold, other times emotional, like the weight of those accusations never really left his mind. He's even said he might know who did it, but refuses to say anything. That could mean two things. Either he truly doesn't know, or he's keeping secrets too dangerous to speak out loud. And now, decades later, the pressure hasn't stopped. Both murders are back under the spotlight, and every few months, a new witness or piece of evidence pops up. Technology has evolved. Investigators have fresh leads, and people inside and outside prison are talking again. The heat around Suge Knight has never fully died down. If anything, it's getting stronger. With 28 years on his sentence, Suge doesn't have much left to lose. That's what makes him dangerous and vulnerable. Law enforcement knows he could cut a deal if he starts naming names. But that same fact makes him a target. If he really does know who pulled those triggers, that knowledge might be the only thing keeping him alive, or the reason someone might want him gone. See, the real question isn't what Suge Knight knows. It's how long he can stay alive to tell it. Because in this industry, silence keeps people rich, and truth gets people buried. Every call he makes, every podcast he drops, every secret he hints at, it reminds everyone that the game's still dirty, and the players still scared. Whether Suge's telling the full truth, twisting it for attention, or playing a deadly power move from behind bars, one thing's certain, his voice still makes people nervous. And maybe that voice is exactly what could get him silenced for good. If you like this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications because we're just getting started and you don't want to miss what's coming next.